Get in, nerds. We are playing Burden of Command. We've been out here for a while, so it's time to chip away at. It's time to do what we've been doing. I'm not gonna get creative with this. I know how getting creative goes. I mean, obviously, there's a time and place, and we're closer to it than we've been in previous days. But the mission's the mission. I'm not going to get stupid about that. I gotta do what I gotta do. And the thing I gotta do is I gotta dig in these tanks. That's all. That's the point. That's where we are as an armed force. That's where the Cottonbalers are. We're digging in tanks. I'm not gonna try to get greedy. I'm not gonna try to, take targets of opportunity up here. I'm just gonna take my MGs. I'm gonna hit the enemy hard. And I'm going to do everything I need to do to do damage and complete the thing I'm here to do. So, I'm going to grab this 50 cal, hit this unit up here. It's going to be Stern's go. Again, we're just hitting officers and stealing orders. That's the goal here. I got more MGs in the south. He's got one order left, this unit, so we'll hit him here. Fire! Okay. This German leader has 2 orders, so that leader's out of orders. This German leader has 2 orders, so we'll hit him. We'll whack him for 1. And then this MG is, again, a little low on morale, but it is what it is. We'll hit him for his other order. So that means that unit's not going to be able to do anything, which is good. We got 2 additional shots with this MG. What the heck? We'll hit this other squad. Have a little fun. And then, okay, that's the end of that squad's orders. And now, finally, with this MG, I'm going to steal all the orders out of this guy. Alright, and hopefully that means doing as we wish for the remainder of the turn. Let's see how the enemy handles it. They rallied that machine gun once again. Alright, didn't take any additional action. So from here, time to open up with the tanks. Let's do some suppression to this squad. Maybe soften them up for subsequent turns. Fire! And then with this here tank, let's pound away at this squad. They're in the open. They're an easy target. Again, not getting creative, just successfully completing the objectives as required. Enemy continues to do nothing. Let's take shots at these squads.
Hit him first!
Any spot over here that's like a mortar or something. We will try and do some damage to this unit. Again, they shoot back, but it's not like you can destroy a tank with small arms anyway. And then finally, we'll hit this squad.
Don't let up!
And then now that it's turned end, we'll rotate back and point this way. And then this squad, this tank will hit this leader again. We can do a little bit more suppression to him. We can maybe take away some more orders. Take away some future orders, really, is the thing I'm thinking about. Alright, so that is the tanks. Alright, so they shot. I won initiative. I still took a little bit of suppression, but I suppressed them as well. And I got the bolster off again and won initiative, so... Oh, dealt some casualties. Nice. Nice. Got some trust into Thompson. That's very good. Alright. Not too bad, not too bad. I can actually shoot this unit with Thompson's squad. What's it look like with Rao? Not as good, because this squad is feeling real bad from all of the hits they have taken. Yeah, we'll shoot at them. Try to get ourselves a little bit of free experience and casualties from this enemy unit sitting out here. What about this unit? Do I want to take the opportunity to shoot it at this squad? I don't think so. I have the ability to rally them? I actually can. So let's do it.
We won't lose.
Alright, so they'll be fresh and ready for next turn. This should... So, I'm feeling very strongly like I'm going to win next turn. That's how I'm feeling. Enemy taking any action? Doesn't look like it, so let's go ahead and... We'll creep Captain Murphy one more step. Actually, before I do that, check the sight lines. Still have a sight line there. So we'll creep Captain Murphy one more step this way. Okay, not sure what that was about. But it is what it is. No more action by the enemy. These guys should finish this turn, and we'll see what happens. Alright, both tanks are dug in steadily despite the best efforts of the Germans. Naturally, you wait for something to go wrong. Oop. I did it. Great success. Let's continue with the story. Hey!
Were there any other
Charles, it's been a
people
minute.
in your unit who came from Champaign-Urbana or from...
Not in my outfit. My brother-in-law was in the 1st Special Service Force. That was a Canadian-American outfit. That's the one that lost, out of the whole battalion, I think they lost more than 3/4 of their battalion on account of the Germans counterattacked it and caught them flat-footed and and either captured him or killed him. But he was in the first special service. He was the only. I did get to see him a couple of times when we were on Anzio, but that was about it.
W. I agree. We did win. Another day in Italy. The mission, major victory. Both tanks dug in briefly. The men, major victory. Casualties less than 10%. Your men dig those tanks in. A Panzerfaust streaks out and embeds itself in the earthen barricade. The brass will be pleased. Then German artillery finds the range. Those tanks reverse out and motor for the rear. The brass will be less pleased. Return to Grant. Time to pull the men back. That's enough for today. Guess we need more tanks. Guess we need more tanks. Grant stares at you for a long moment. It isn't funny now, but one day it might be. Grant falls back on being the first sergeant, sends out messengers, and gets Sparks to crank up the radio. Messengers are gathered, and Sparks cranks up the radio. Your men get out of Dodge. Their muddy trenches never looked so good. No doubt the Germans feel the same. At long last it is over, and Nickel did its utmost. I'm hoping that whoever called me on the phone and gave me that stupid-ass order appreciates that I did the thing that I was supposed to do, and did it frickin' well. He also studies where you tried to emplace those tanks. Both spots have been shelled heavily by the Germans, just in case. Blood and sweat was spent here, that's for damn sure, he observes in his low, gravelly voice. But rest assured, Captain, we'll find a better way to defend this ground. Hell, maybe we won't have to. And that is ominous. The next morning is more of the same. More rain, more mud, more dull thumps of artillery fire hidden in the banks of low fog. Another day in hell. Bold words for guys not deployed in, anywhere in the Pacific. No plans for close contact with the enemy, indeed. Alright, let's aid our men. So, we've taken some casualties. That's for damn sure. But not that many, actually. We got a lot of prestige to play with. So let's get ourselves some experienced replacements. 5 casualties for the tanks digging in mission. Not bad. Oh my god, they gave us 4 replacements? You motherfuckers. Alright, well, that is what it is. I've got some prestige and some loyalty to play with, so I could do a little bit of man guiding. I can't believe they gave me a really hard mission, and then I freaking did it, and they're not giving me enough guys to replace the guys that... This isn't a mission where I got a lot of Mother Sons killed here. I was very cautious, and I was mostly effective. Alright, so... I got some prestige and loyalty. Any units that I, I'm having a really hard time getting kind of up there in experience? I don't think so. I do not think so. So let's just do a little bit of distributing just a bit of my experience, just to get them within spitting distance of their 5 stars. I'm not going to do too much. And that should be plenty. Again, I got to preserve my prestige. That's enough. That's enough. There'll be plenty of replacing to do later on. Alright, let's continue our journey. Never give in, indeed. Cisterna rematch. Interesting. Is this where we had the Rangers thing the other day? Alright, May 25th. Wow, it's been a long couple of months.
Wounded American boys being treated in the field. A rifle stock makes an emergency splint. Frontline surgery. Not a pretty sight, but this is the stern reality. This is the inevitable cost of war. The cost of fighting and destroying an army as technically powerful, as totally equipped for global murder as the Nazis.
March 1944, Anzio. The constant price.
We wanted payback for Cisterna, for the guys we lost, for those damn months of hell.
The weeks wear on. Through grinding days and cold nights, the fieldworks begin to sprawl. Nickel Company men scour the earth with their shovels to cut trenches where they can move, safe from bullets and the screeching binoculars of German artillery spotters. The fighting has become a brutal shoving match, unlike the fluid battles across Morocco and Sicily. Then one day, a new order arrives from battalion that pulls you back from the lines for a little while. Near to Battalion CP, you catch sight of your former commander, an officer who would have left the mud and trenches behind now that he was a perch at regiment, who could have left the mud and trenches behind now that he has a perch at regiment. Major Rosson might be ankle deep in mud again, but there is a hint of good humor in his eyes. "Captain," Major Rosson says as he passes you a written order. Your headquarters staff listen in with one ear, reserving the other for the crack and tear of sniper's shot. Thought your company could use some good news. The 135th is going to be taking over this part of the line. Let me guess, they want us in the Pacific? Are we leaving the beachhead? Change sounds good, but I'm cautious. Yes, sir. Skip ahead. Let me guess, they want us in the Pacific? Not yet, Major Rawson replies with a dark chuckle. The entire 7th is in for a retraining and reconditioning in a couple of days. All those splendid morning muscles have been idle for too long. We need to get everyone, especially the replacements, into fighting trim, starting with Nickel Company. The men look to each other, their eyes light with hope that maybe, just maybe, they can survive the trenches without catching a bullet. What kind of retraining? Any replacements? Where will we be retraining, sir? Make preparations to part the trenches. What kind of retraining? The brass thinks the Germans will fight hard for Cisterna. That means street fighting, machine guns, and flamethrowers. Major Austin says, then grimaces slightly before he can hide it. Hopefully on our side. Either way, the crowds will be dug in. Flamethrowers? Any replacements? Where are we headed, sir? Well, any replacements? Some. We're trying to bring out every company up to establishment, but it's been all uphill, Major Austin says. Every command is screaming for warm bodies, and the crowds are doing their best to worsen that shortage. I take one hard fighter over any reclassified clerks. Oh, that's funny. Where are we headed, sir? To a little stretch of pine forest, about the only place the Germans don't shell regularly. There you can step out during the day without bringing your earthworks along with you, Major Rawson says. You recall that isn't far from the field hospital. Hopefully the area will also be out of sight of the German artillery spotters. I take one hard fighter over any reclassified clerks. I agree, Major Rawson says, but that's above my pay grade. We do the best we can with what we're given. Flamethrowers? They've got a few to attach to the assault squads, Major Rawson says. Hell of a way for a man to clear a house if he doesn't mind the 4 gallons of gasoline riding on his back. And what was that about machine guns? They're looking to beef up our heavy weapons complement when we go forward, Major Rawson says. 50 cals for punching through doors and shutters, and more bazookas for knocking holes through walls. Make preparations to depart the trenches. Major Rawson points out where you'll be headed on the map, a small forested section of the beachhead. You recall that it isn't far from the field hospital. Hopefully the area will also be out of sight of German artillery spotters. Okay, we had that bark already. Wish I could have stayed on for this part, but they're reshuffling the command structure from top on down, Major Rawson says. They don't want to slot me back in, not right now at least. Maybe one day we'll serve together again. Salute. Rawson returns your salute. He heads off back to Corps. A few more days and then relief. Specifically, the planned relief in place is set for a brief period of deep dusk. Nickel Company will leave at 1930 hours. The 135th will move in an hour later. Summon my officers to the CP, delegate the details. Summon my officers to the CP. Command post. Rao's already in the command post, submitting immaculate paperwork concerning 2 men wounded in action earlier. He gives his heels a little click when you tell him of the relief. It is always easier marching away from the lines than toward. None of the 2nd platoon will be slow, you may expect this. After an exchange of nods, he marches himself out. First platoon is all but giddy about the move. Several men pace and chatter excitedly as dusk gathers. They say there's no place like home, Thompson says when they sling their mud-stained packs. After these past few weeks, I can't disagree. 3rd Platoon hands things over to the new unit. Dearborn lingers a few minutes, chatting wistfully with an old classmate from the 135th about their families, their lives in Virginia. I wondered if Shorty had fallen into bad company, Dearborn says dryly when his men march out. It appears I was right. In the distance, the Germans let fly a few lonely rounds and churn distant earth. The ripping shout of an MG-42 echoes a rolling burst somewhere down the line. Thankfully, that's not your fight. I wish I'd gotten kind of an acknowledgement that, like, even though I said that order is stupid, and we're not going to do it, when they said do it, we did it. Would be nice. But, you know, not a lot of emotional satisfaction to be had in war. It is what it is. Stern makes sure to give the Germans a send-off, slathering mortar rounds onto an outpost he discovered while making a sunset observation. That'll set the screws to him. Your men march out of the trenches as a unit for the first time in weeks. Nickel Company reaches the pines by a slow, worrisome march. The moon is well up by the time you slip between the dark trees. Now you'll have 14 days to get your men back into shape. Not a lot of time. There needs to be physical conditioning, weapon and tactical training, induction of replacements, and more. Your enlisted men might just be happy enough that they're not being shot at, not to mention getting clean uniforms, hot meals and showers, and a full delousing. Also, you can schedule a movie night without worrying about mortars. But your officers? That's a whole different question. Thompson has been stressed by these past months of combat, particularly that last one, probably. Rao is rigid as ever, but he meets each new day with the sort of tight-lipped sang-froid that makes you really glad he's on your side. Rao, no appreciable stress. Yeah, Thompson's at medium stress. He got shot at a lot. Dearborn still has his customary smoke before a patrol and his finger of bourbon after, in what you must imagine to be a comforting ritual. Low stress. Stern isn't in good shape. He's laying in mountains of mortar rounds and spending hours writing messages to the Jerrys on each and every one. Alright. Send an officer back to Naples for a rest. Focus on planning the coming days. That's interesting. Let's send Stern for a rest. Ships leave for Napoli all the time. They also return to the beachhead just as frequently. Sending a lieutenant along can be done. Ordering a pass for them to a resort town like Sorrento or just the rest camp at Caserta is one of those things the captain can ask his battalion for. Whether the lieutenant's platoon will suffer from the lack of leadership during the intensive training is another thornier matter. Stern needs a halftime break, his combat fatigue minus 30, training benefits reduced, or reconsider I need every officer here. Stern needs... Well, 30 is not that much. Yeah, he needs it. You order Stern to Napoli. He grimaces and stares into the distance for a long moment, no doubt seeing all the Germans he could kill with a little extra effort. Alright, but I sure hope there'll be krauts to paste when I come back. His men see him off with a rousing song in Yiddish that clearly couldn't make any more sense if it was translated into English. Nonetheless, he shouts out, Chazak uverach, which pleases everyone, after one of the Jewish privates translates that as, be strong and blessed. It will be 2 weeks until Stern returns. In the meantime, there is training to consider. The schedule will be intense. There are only 2 weeks to get both the battle-hardened veterans and fresh replacements in shape for the inevitable breakout offensive. First Sergeant Grant reads over the criteria and glances up at you. Well, sir, they've arranged tactical training with flamethrowers and urban assault classes. Add General Truscott's usual trotting and we'll have our hands full. Every officer you have at hand will have to do their utmost. Focus on learning the new weaponry. Add a flamethrower. Test total cunning. Squads gain a little XP. Intensive urban assault training is paramount. Add a bazooka team. Test doctrine. Squads get some XP, possible officer combat fatigue. Concentrate on physical conditioning. Squads get a lot of XP, possible officer combat fatigue. Our integrating replacements is our first priority. Test compassion. Squads gain some XP. I'm going to focus on learning about the new weaponry. I got a lot of cunning to play with. You make sure every squad gets rotated through a course teaching the basics of flamethrower maintenance, tactics, and operations. They even get a chance to see the things in action once or twice. Even with the inherent dangers of trying to spit out fire on the battlefield, your men come away with a feeling that properly used, the flamethrowers will be just what is needed to help take Cisterna quickly. The entire company gets plus 20 XP. Wonderful. A week burns up. Stern returns from Napoli and pokes his head inside the bunker that is the company command post. I'm back, Captain, Stern says. Germans haven't gone anywhere, have they? You must have had a great time in Naples. I can tell if that's sarcasm. Let the distant artillery boom. You must have had a great time in Naples. I did, but to be honest, I'd rather be in Berlin. Anything important I should know before I go? No heavy casualties, if that's what you mean. Weapons platoon will gain additional XP. They've been playing with flamethrowers. Combat fatigue -10. I'm going to reduce his combat fatigue. They've been playing with the flamethrowers. Stern flashes a wicked smile. Oh, now that would be a thing! A flamethrower attached to the company. Feels like Hanukkah's coming early and staying late. With an eager nod, he strides away and returns to his platoon. Saturday. Still so much work. As dawn hits the beachhead, First Sergeant Grant brews up a pot of what the headquarters staff jokingly refers to as trench coffee. It's hard to say why they chose that name, but it could be for color, smell, or taste. This is the only thing that keeps me sane, to have some coffee. The smell alone will be enough to keep me to keep sleep at bay. Don't drink coffee. I'm gonna drink coffee! Hell yeah. The first cup would be the weakest, and so you let the others fill up. Corporal Sobieski has his naturalization ceremony today, First Sergeant Grant says between sips. They'll be assembling on the beach at 0800 before the haze lifts. Word is there's more than 30 going to take the oath. I think I'll go and tease him about being late to the party, trust +20. We should congratulate him when he comes back, trust +10, prestige +1. That's good, but we should really get to work, prestige +2. You know, I don't really need the trust, but I'm gonna go. This is a big deal. Wind and wave caress the beach as 30-odd soldiers gather in the sands and stand before a major. These men have been born around the world, but fate has brought them here today. Together they raise their hands and recite the oath. I hereby declare on oath that I absolutely and entirely renounce and abjure all allegiance and fidelity to any foreign prince, potentate, state, or sovereignty. The Germans fire a volley at the departing ship. No one falters. And that I will support and defend the Constitution and laws of the United States of America against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, and that I take this obligation freely and without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion. So help me God. Afterwards, there's a little paperwork, because there's always some these days. It is almost as troublesome as the coffee. The men sign on the dotted line and become citizens of the United States of America. There's no time for celebration, though. The papers are gathered, the flimsy army table disassembled, and the soldiers disperse before the haze of a new day lifts. Corporal Sobieski hurries over with joy dancing in his eyes. I'm an American now, Capitan. It will be great. It will be great day. 7 days of labor makes 1 week, and Sunday is a day of rest. Or half the day of rest for the men and the officers and their captain. There is, as ever, so much to be done. First Sergeant Grant catches your eye as the two of you finish the day's paperwork. Plans, Captain? I'm asking because the men like to emulate their boss, if practical. Your stress is high. I'm going to eat a big dinner and watch a movie. Reduce some stress and combat fatigue, bonus later. No rest for the wicked. Combat fatigue -5, all squads +5 XP. There's drinking and cards in my future, reduce a lot of combat fatigue, penalty later. I'm going to water ski in the bay, combat fatigue -20, or I'm going to visit Lieutenant Rodgers, expanded scene, variable combat fatigue reduction. Lieutenant Rodgers. I don't remember who that is. It's been a while since I played this game. As you can see from the patches in the descriptions, it's been a while. I think this is probably the optimal option, but I want to see Lieutenant Rodgers. We're going to do an expanded scene. Oh, the men wish they could follow you on that, First Sergeant Grant says. All the ladies in the parts are already taken. Not that Lieutenant Rodgers and her nurses are... Well, I'll just be quiet now. Okay, yes, this is Lieutenant Rodgers. Yeah, the woman who gave us a lecture about STIs. The evacuation hospital is not where you left it. Apparently, the brass decided to relocate the whole thing to the beach. Only the giant red crosses plastered over every tent serve as any kind of defense, albeit a moral one rather than a material one. Judging by the craters in the sand, the Germans don't appear to be taking heed. Though the engineers haven't been able to dig the hospital tents in, they have sandbagged the sides to ward off shrapnel. The tops have been less lucky. The canvas there looks like a fool's motley, covered in patches to cover the rips and holes. Today, one tent is still operating. The wards are half filled with men whose chests and heads are swathed in white bandages, sometimes with a suction pump standing by. A quick question to one of the orderlies directs you to the supply tent. You step in to find Lieutenant Rodgers honing the wide teeth of a surgical saw with an odd set of pliers. Under her steady, precise motions, the steel is sharpened. Captain, she says with a familiar, weary warmness, and glances up at your neck where she'd stitched you up over a month ago. Let me finish up. I'll be right with you. Do you mind waiting? I can wait forever if you need me to. Out for a walk, apologize and back out, end the scene minus 10 count empty. I can wait forever if you need me to. It won't be that long, she says. Just give me a minute, I'll be right there. You step outside and wait. Minutes later, Lieutenant Rodgers emerges without the bone saw. It's too bad I can't be long, she says. I know Sunday is supposed to be a day of rest, but I don't think the Germans got the memo. Where to? Just around? How about getting a decent cup of coffee? Can I give you a hand with something? How about getting a decent cup of coffee? That sounds wonderful, she says. It's been the only thing keeping me from falling over dead since February. The two of you take a short walk to the mess tent. The smell of coffee, bacon, and something badly burnt lingers in the air. Forget the smell, she says as she pours 2 cups of coffee and offers you one. The stove exploded last night. No one was hurt, but a lot of the cheese suffered a terrible fate. Ask after her work, share an anecdote about the beachhead, enjoy a bit of silence. How's she doing? It's dangerous and monotonous, she says. But if it means getting boys back on their feet, it's all worth it. I'm going to share an anecdote about the beachhead. I do enjoy hearing what things are like elsewhere on the beachhead, she says. Get a little repetitive here. You have plenty of tales to tell. Funny ones about Morris and Patterson, a strange one about a private who dressed up in a tuxedo and did magic tricks on the beach, or how some men have taken to water skiing in the bay. Private who dressed up in a tuxedo and did magic tricks on the beach. The Baron. I thought the Baron was the duck. That's curious. I'm not sure what to pick here. Morris and Patterson. She doesn't want to hear about Morris and Patterson. They're dumbasses. I'm going to tell her about the water skiing. You tell that the fanatics who decided that the Bay of Anzio was perfect for water skiing, even if they had to use a mighty duck to do it. Apparently the skiers handcrafted all the gear and have been having their sport despite the Germans. Some of their superiors tolerate that, no doubt because it's good for their morale. Too bad the Olympics were cancelled, Lieutenant Rodgers says. Her eyes sparkle with amusement. The crump of shelling reverberates in the distance. Lieutenant Rodgers lets out a sigh, then drains her cup of coffee. They'll be wounded soon, she says in bleak tones. We'll need to treat them quickly if we don't want gangrene to set in. There's been a lot of that lately, with all the farm fields being churned up. You better prepare. This war won't last forever. Hope this has been a fair respite. So, you were outstanding in your field. I don't get what this joke is, but, I know the joke about the Scarecrow. Why did the Scarecrow get a promotion? Because he was outstanding in his field, but I don't get why it applies here. Well, I hope this has been a fair respite. For the both of us, I hope, she says. For a brief moment, she looks away. A weight seems to settle on her, one she can't simply brush off. In quiet tones, she asks, "What brought you here, Captain?" "I'd just like to see you again one of these days." A chance to serve? A long chain of choices? The need for a friend outside my company. Oh, so I'm a married man. I think this one is more... I think this one it leaves a potential for romance, but, again, I got a wife I'm going back to. This isn't I'm not that kind. Just need a friend outside my company. Oh, Lieutenant Rodgers, and then thinks about that for a minute. I think I can see your point. I can't get too friendly with the nurses, and we're not in the front lines. Most times. Distant shouts rise up. A generator chugs to life. Intense light transforms the waning day into a bright, shadowless expanse. Combat fatigue minus 40. Shush! It was good to see you, even if only for a little while. Take care, Captain. With that, Lieutenant Rodgers heads out of the mess tent to wage her part of the war. Later that evening, First Sergeant Grant lets you know how the company's been doing. Half a day of rest seems to have done wonders for enlisted morale, especially since it came with a movie and popcorn. Thompson's combat fatigue minus 40, prior introspection bonus. Nice. Thompson readily enjoyed his quiet time, reading just a little bit seemed to put him at ease. Rao's combat fatigue minus 10. Rao couldn't unclench if he had dysentery, or so your first sergeant assumes, but like a good officer, Lieutenant Rao did try to relax. Dearborn's combat fatigue minus 10. Dearborn maintained his accustomed distance, but Grant suspects the man is writing some kind of report in his head. Okay, so Stern didn't get any combat fatigue reductions, so maybe it's just... well, I don't know. Anyway, it is what it is. Nickel Company settles back at the front. Aside from more crap in the foxholes and mud in the trenches, only one thing has changed. Anzio Annies. This is 12th April. The rising wail of incoming artillery shrieks like a freight train. Your men scatter into the trenches. The screams end and the ground lurches beneath you. The earthen walls of the trench crumble. Your boots sink deep into muck. Anzio Annie, the queen of the German armory, is throwing quarter-ton shells again. There's nothing I can do about this. Skip to the scenario. Head out there and reassure the men. Possible change to trust, fatigue, and prestige and combat fatigue. I'll head out and reassure the men. First Sergeant Grant falls in behind you, his heavy boots splashing along the spring mud. The trenches aren't wide enough to hold 2 men abreast. Making them wider would only make their occupants more vulnerable to enemy artillery, and there's plenty of that. Sounds like Anzio Annie hitting your first platoon, First Sergeant Grant says. For a moment, the two of you listen for screams of pain or calls for medics, but there's only silence. Think maybe it missed him? One big shell wasted. We could do with some luck. So 1 big shell wasted, sarcasm +1. We could do with some luck, sarcasm -1. Maybe we'll read about it in the papers. Verbosity +1, or there's nothing good to say about to that. Verbosity -1. 1 big shell wasted. Give me that sarcasm. Too bad the Krauts never seem to run out. First Sergeant Grant grumbles in reply to as the two of you trench on. Wish they'd make it into the press. Wish that'd make it into the press. A low clatter rises up ahead. You round the bend and find a squad from 1st Platoon at work with their spades, digging out a half-buried private. The trench here buckled and the damn mud flowed in. The private is pale with fright as a medic wraps a blanket around his shoulders to keep off the chill. A quick count tells you that they're all accounted for despite the size of the round, and strangely, only a few are focused on their injured fellow. They hit the pot, just when the hooch was getting good. Goddamn war crime, that's what this is. Patterson grumbles as he digs furiously to unearth the man. Morrison looks up from thin dirt. Think it was the vanilla? Maybe the Krauts smelled it. It weren't the... Patterson sights you, falls silent, and raises his shovel in an acknowledgement that won't get anyone killed. But when shovels shift, fresh mud splatters Morris. No one stands. The trench isn't deep enough to offer any protection from snipers. Why do they call that gun Anzio Annie, Captain? The half-buried private asks, through shaking lips that can barely hold a cigarette. The kid's new. He hasn't even been up front long enough for his cuffs to be discolored by the mud. There's lots of reasons. Ask your first sergeant. Ask your lieutenant for the Hays Code answer. Hays Code is the code about what you can put in the pictures. It's an informal. No, sorry, it's not informal. I just mean it's not legal. It's a voluntary code adopted by a bunch of different motion picture houses in the 30s, I want to say, as they're sort of, we're good Americans, we don't need to be censored, we'll censor ourselves. I hope if I say there's a lot of reasons, I'll get a chance to go on and on about it, which is my favorite thing. The men listen up. Some like to call it the Anzio Express. Some think it sounds like an ex-girlfriend because she screams as she comes. Oh, that's so extreme. I'm gonna take the middle path. Some think it sounds like an ex-girlfriend. With all that screaming, First Sergeant Grant notes. Lieutenant Thompson jogs up. He slows as he sees you and tenders over a nod that no overeager sniper could mistake for a salute. Just a few pairs of ruined skivvies this time, Captain. We were lucky. Grant taps his watch. Next round coming up. You give the order to scatter. That way even the Anzio Express couldn't kill the entire squad. The men pull their private out with an awful sucking sound and carry him off. Only after a few steps you hear it, that terrible incoming wail, off to the right near 3rd Platoon. Whatever the Germans are targeting, their spotting seems poor. Might be on account of the haze. You open your mouth up to save your ears from another beating, but only a distant crump of an impact follows. Nothing. No earth-shattering kaboom. There's supposed to be an earth-shattering kaboom! Marvin the Martian. That quote from Marvin the Martian lives rent-free in my head. It was a dud. That hasn't happened before. We arrive at 3rd Platoon just as Lieutenant Dearborn finishes pulling his men back from the crater impact. It appears that on occasion even German engineering falls short, Dearborn says as he ponders the thin wisp of white smoke that rises some 20 yards off. And this is an opportunity. Explain, how is this an opportunity? Decide what to do about the unexploded shell. How's this an opportunity? I made the acquaintance of a few staff officers in the rear area with excellent taste in bourbon and awful luck at cards, he says with a grin as he lights up. They have mentioned at intervals General Clark's concerns regarding our Anzio Express. I'd imagine they'd be quite appreciative should we find a way to get them some insight into the inner workings of Herr Hitler's latest toy. By the book, redigging the entire trench line is the Army way. It'd take a lot of sweat, but it would work. Another way involves calling in a disposal team to blow up the shell. That'd also take some digging, and they'll no doubt use your men, which means it'll be your guys at risk if the thing goes off prematurely for that. Dearborn wants to recover the shell intact. They might be able to figure out a lot about the gun that she's firing, about the gun that's firing it. Of course, this isn't the first piece of unexploded ordnance out there. Send for a recovery team, try to extract the shell, prestige +1, even chance of casualties, and trust -20. Send for a disposal team, plan to detonate the shell, even chance of casualties, and trust +or -5. Let sleeping shells lie, combat fatigue -20, slight chance of heavy casualties. Or redig the entire trench line. This is risky. You know, Dearborn has done well for me. I'm gonna risk it. I'm gonna send for a recovery team. Your request is answered after sundown when a team of Royal Engineers arrives with keen eyes and steady hands. Someone high up must like the idea of recovering the dud. Naturally, your men are drafted into helping remove the layers of shattered earth that covers the shell from the Anzio Express. Everyone works steadily. The Germans throw up the occasional parachute flare, but the gunfire that follows is mostly bickering from further up the line. Near midnight, a low whistle of appreciation rises up as the team uncovers the dud. It's a big sucker, and someone whispers that it's still warm to the touch. Another jokes that this kind of blind would make for a great paperweight. As the disposal men dig a hole around the casing, throw a tarp over the hole, and do who knows what with it for the next hour. Afterward, they pack TNT in and wire things up. From a safe distance, they push the plunger down. The explosion rocks the trenches once. The Germans answer with a spatter of fire, but there are no casualties to report. Your men sleep knowing the division will get their intel, but more importantly, that the ground beneath them won't erupt while they slumber. Excellent. I was hoping we would get an allusion to a particular... Just going to take a second here to tell you all about this. There's a particular plane that took some nasty fire, a bomber that took some nasty fire over occupied Europe. They came back and they found a dud shell lodged in their plane. And they were like, man, thank God this thing was a dud, or we would have been goners. They pulled out the shell and they opened it up, and instead of a detonator, the primer, instead of the primer that would have made the shell go off, was just a note that said in Czech, from the Czech Republic, "This is all we can do for you now." It was a product of sabotage by of the German production facilities by Czech patriots in occupied Czechoslovakia. It was pretty cool. So I was thinking we might get something like that, but you know, it is not this time. Dawn breaks with the sound of rolling thunder. American guns light up the sky as they rake the German positions with fire and steel. At long last, the breakout begins. Oh, sorry, I didn't read the date. This is 23rd May, 1944. 05:45 hours. An hour later, Nickel Company, 3rd Battalion, the whole of 7th Regiment, all of 3rd Division, and the entirety of 6th Corps swing into the attack. 24th May, 1944. The focused advance gives the way to a frenzied action as 3rd Battalion gets hung up in minefields, wire, counter-bombardment, and just like Fadala, a murderous spat of friendly fire. Ugh. Thankfully, Nickel Company is spared the worst of it. Even so, the company medics are working overtime, but finally Cisterna, the seat of so many troubles, the town that swallowed the Rangers, lies before you. After a spectacular sunset, Major Ramsey, 3rd Battalion XO, drops into the shell hold that presently serves as your command post. His left sleeve is bloody and torn. Captain, he says with remarkable calm as he absently picks a bit of shrapnel out of his forearm, 2nd Battalion storming Cisterna tonight. You and Nickel Company are going with them. Don't look surprised. You're nearly at full strength, and after the way you handled Anzio and his dud, the brass has taken a shine to you. They think you're the man for the job, and every good deed brings its own punishment. He pulls out a map of Cisterna and shows you the axis of advance, right through the center of town. The Germans are dug in deep, and there's no way around them, Major Ramsey says. Go forward, get in, and get it done. With bayonets if you have to. If we can't take Cisterna, we'll never reach Rome. Yes, sir. Begin scenario, prestige +1. Any support? Trust +10. There will be artillery and tanks, maybe the flamethrowers we were promised, Major Ramsey says. Night will be your biggest ally, Captain. Major Ramsey gives you a nod, then waits for the next crashing barrage of outgoing shells before dashing for the remnants of King Company down the line. Well, shit, First Sergeant Grant mutters under his breath. Cisterna is a ruin. Months of bombing and shelling have reduced it to rubble. Piles of stone line the streets, cairns to the houses and shops that once stood there. Those few buildings that have 3 walls are gutted and occupied. American artillery pounds the remains, like a man with a baseball bat beating a week's dead mule. A building catches on fire, peeling back the gloom. The mission sees all objectives, the men vengeance. Secure the church, suffer no more than light casualties. Okay, curious. Alright, so this will be interesting. It's a very small map, and we are in close. That having been said, that is all the time we got for this episode, my nerds. I have had fun. I hope you all have had fun, and I will see you on the other side.